Photoshop. This is version CS6, which is the newest version out there. On the left hand side, whenever you open this version initially, you will have a 1-column toolbar rather than a 2-column toolbar. And if you see the little double arrows there, if you click on that once, you should be able to get a 2-column toolbar, just so that you can see everything together. And I'm thinking especially about the folks on older versions, such as CS3, you only have a 2-column toolbar. Okay, so everything I will do will be on a 2-column so that you can find the tools nice and easy. You have your menus along the top. Immediately underneath the menus, you have your options bar. And as you click on different tools within the toolbar, your options bar changes. Okay, so you can see if I click on the text tool, it becomes more like a text formatter. Okay, and on the right hand side, this does look a little bit different, but it's not that different, hopefully. But these are your palettes. So in CS3, for example, you'll have a navigator up top, you'll have your colors, you'll have your history, and then underneath here you'll have your layers. Okay, so it has 4 panels versus our 3 panels in the newer version. Okay, so initially I'm just going to go to File and Open. Just because it's coming up to Christmas. Okay, so what's wrong with this image? It's misty, it's washed out, it's lacking contrast, it's a bit flat and lifeless. So there's a couple of things that we can do here. If you want to be lazy and do the autos work 99% of the time, but there will be times where you guys are looking for subjectivity. So let's look at the autos first. So in this version of the software, you will go to Image, and in the Image drop-down menu, you will see that you have 3 autos. If you're doing it in CS5 and prior to that, it'll be Image and Adjustments, and you would have your autos about here. Okay, so I'm just going to click Auto Tone first of all, and you'll see there that that's a massive improvement, and the computer did it based on the information on the card. So I'm just going to Control Z to step back. If I do Image and Auto Contrast, you probably couldn't tell the difference between auto tone and auto contrast. Again, the computer did the whole thing. And I'm just stepping back through Control Z. And this time I'm going to do auto color. And again, those 3 autos, you probably can't tell the difference in the coloration at all. So I'm just going to take that back to the sad Santa. Okay, so he's flat, he's lacking contrast. The next thing we're going to look at is if we want to adjust it manually so that we can add our own spin on it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go into here is levels. Now the levels has this thing called a histogram. And the histogram is a distribution of light. And if you look at the little sliders here, we have a black slider, which is your shadows, a grey slider, which is your midtones, and a white slider, which is your highlights. And the way that this particular histogram is distributed is between the midtones and the highlights, which is why it's very grey and very bright. There's no shadows there at all. Okay, so the rule of thumb that you work with here, if I just move this out of the road, if I grab the black slider, which is your shadows, and take that up to the right, you'll see there that it gets progressively darker. And if I take it past the histogram, it will eventually turn black. So I'm just going to put that back. The same with the highlight slider. If I grab that and take it down towards the left, it's progressively brighter and it will turn white. Okay. The mid-tone slider, if you take it to the left, it gets brighter, but not 100% white. And if I take it to the right, it gets darker. In this case, it does go 100% black. Okay. The rule of thumb that you guys are looking for, see where the histogram starts on the left, where I'm hovering over? That's where you bring your black slider to. And the same on the right, where the histogram starts on the right is where you bring your highlight slider to. Okay, and that's pretty much the same as your auto. And then you guys have subjectivity through your highlights. Some people like high key, so you'll make it a bit brighter. Some people like low key, where they'll make it a little bit darker. And that depends on your subject. So if we were doing a portrait here, if we captured a little child on camera, you do not want to do low key, okay, because it looks sinister. It does not match the subject type. You may want to do high key and keep it all nice and light and bright and innocent. Whereas if you're doing an old geezer, okay, with a lot of character and wrinkles on his face, light and bright may not suit the subject, but if you take it down and make it a little bit darker and emphasize the character on his face, that could be a lot better. Okay, so as I say, that's just some of the options. At the moment as well, if we just look up in the channel, we're using the full RGB, which is red, green, blue. That's every colour within the digital photograph. If, however, I want to amend just one of those, if I click on the RGB, I have a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And the opposite of RGB is CMY, cyan, magenta, yellow. So the opposite of red is cyan, the opposite of green is magenta, the opposite of blue is yellow. And if I click on the blue, and again, this is a separate histogram, it's now just for the blue channel. But if I grab that middle slider and just move that about, you can see there that it is progressively blue or yellow. So you can warm or cool an item even in this dialog box. You don't necessarily have to, because there's other options where you can change the temperature of things as well. The other thing that I want to show you here, I'm just going to do Alt so that my cancel changes into a reset, so that I don't actually have to come out of the dialog box, but I can reset the dialog box. So that was Alt to get the cancel to change to a reset. I want to point out to you here these little eyedroppers. Normally eyedroppers are used to lift colour or pick colour out of an image. In this instance, the eyedroppers are used to set the shadows, the midtones and the highlights. So if I click on the black eyedropper, you need to make sure that there is an actual black in the photograph at the darkest point of the photo. So if I go here for Santa's boots, you'll see there that everything has got quite dark. And you can see that the histogram has changed here as well. If I go for the white eyedropper, I know that Santa's beard is white, but you're not just clicking on white, you're looking for the whitest or the brightest white within the photograph. So I think that's kind of about there, and you'll see that that's not too bad. And after that, I don't recommend using the midtones eyedropper, and I'll tell you for why. If I click on the midtone eyedropper, so this is the what not to do. The way that you guys will do it is actually use the little slider for your subjectivity. Okay, or your high key, low key. If I click on the midtone dropper, it'll go into the opposite colour spectrum. So what's the opposite of red? Cyan. So if I click on the red of Santa's suit, it brings on a cyan cast. If I click on the yellow of his belt, the opposite of yellow is blue. So it'll take on a blue cast. And if I click on the green of the bag, it was green, it'll take on the magenta cast. So unless you actually click the right tonal area, your midtones eyedropper will give you the opposite colour cast. So the way that the grey tones one should be used is that you're looking for around 18% grey. So you're looking for shadow areas that are just grey with no colour cast or colour within them. And on this particular one, I think if we look around the eaves of the wall, you can see there that there is slight tonal, and it's very, very subtle, slight tonal differences going on there. But if you don't have the confidence for that particular one, just go with the little midtone slider just to help you out there. So if there is a preview, we can unpreview it to see the before, we can re-preview it to see where we're currently at. And the beauty of that is if you're doing just minor, very subtle differences, if you work with something for so long, you can't remember what the beginning of that particular photo was. So do use the previews. And whenever I click OK to that, that is the Santa. So if I press F12 on the keyboard, now for the Mac users, F12 doesn't work. It brings up your dock, okay? So but F12 on a PC will revert the image as to how you opened it or how you last saved it. So this is the original Santa. And if I just do Control Z, it'll undo the revert, and that's your after Santa. To save it, we would do File and Save As. Why Save As? To keep your original. So it's to save your original. So if I go to Save As, this is going to be Santa, either completed or whatever the size is. So I'm just going to put in today's date. Okay, so whenever I click Save there, the next thing to come up is your JPEG quality options. And I'm already saying to you guys last week and the week before, always do your maximum. Okay, because you guys are dealing with photographic. You want the best possible quality with no degradation. So it doesn't matter what size it is, but whenever you click OK, that image now has been saved out as a second copy. So in the folder, I have the original sad looking Santa with the flat colour, and I now have a nice bright bouncy looking Santa with good colour. Okay, so that's just colour correction. So I'm going to go to File and Open here, and I'm looking for an image called luma.jpg. What's wrong with that one? It's blue. So what was wrong in camera? White balance was wrongly set. Now, previously I have said to you, try to take it as correct at point to shoot, but it doesn't matter if you get some things wrong because you can correct them. So in this particular instance here, we go into the image. Anything to do with the coloration and color enhancement is always image and adjustments. And in the adjustments on this occasion, we are looking for color balance. So that's your white balance, is getting color balanced. And the way that this particular dialog box works, if you can identify the color cast that is wrong in your photo, that's the bar that you come down to, and you take the slider in the opposite direction. And you'll see here as well, there's a little bit underneath where you have shadows, midtones and highlights. So we have 3 different sets of sliders. So whenever I click on shadows, that little slider will bounce back into the middle because it's a separate set of sliders. Okay, so you may have to change the tonal balance for all 3. And again, if I do the preview, there's my blue cat, and there's something that looks a bit closer to the truth. Do not go by the wall because the wall is magnolia. And the only other thing there really that's wrong with this is this little flash, okay, underneath his chin is overblown. And that is a problem. There is overexposure there, unfortunately. Again, whenever I say okay to that, again, I would do File and Save As.